Hey team, in this episode, we chat to one of Australia's most successful business owners, Ben Handler. He has founded Australia's largest buyer's agency, Cohen Handler. He sold that. He's now built one of the biggest and most successful online education programs, the Buyer's Agent Institute. It's been a real journey. He's got some really strong beliefs on high ticket and also success in business and in sales. There's so much to unpack here. Enjoy the episode. Ben Handler, welcome.
Good to be here, brother.
Mate, welcome to Beyond the Close. It's so exciting to have you here.
Thank you. I'm pumped to dive in with both of you.
Straight from the surf.
Literally straight and broken. The steamer nearly didn't come off.
Yeah.
The zipper broke. I was like, I'm not going to make it here. Or maybe I'll come in the
It's
wedding.
almost, our first episode in a wetsuit. Yeah.
You would have made it in the wedding. It would have been a really unique podcast, I think. You in a wetsuit, straight from the surf.
I was literally thinking if I can't get scissors, I'll just come in straight in the wedding. No joke.
I would have loved to see it. Part of me's a bit disappointed.
How's the surfing going, mate? How are you progressing?
Getting better. Haven't been surfing that much lately, hey? As much as usually I'll try and go every day.
Why? What's kept you out of the water?
Just morning routines, I've been going to the gym more, doing rowing. I'm running on oxygen a lot as well now, doing adaptive contrast therapy where you run with the oxygen mask and then you alternate between, you deprive yourself of oxygen and then you increase it. So I've been doing that.
What does that do for? Does it help with cardio? Help with?
Apparently, it's just
longevity?
an absolute all that's game changer. Like Gary Brecker for Dana White, that's his protocol is outside of nutrition, it's adaptive contrast therapy with oxygen, the PEMF mat, and then red light.
And you sleep on the PEMF mat?
No, I just
Or you
do
lay
12
on it?
minutes. 12 minutes. It's pretty hardcore. So 12 minutes, 15 minutes running on the. So they say that running on the adaptive contrast, I do 15 minutes on a running machine with it on. They say it's equivalent depending on how hard you go, but it can be 2 to 3 hours of normal cardio.
We need that, babe.
We need that in our lives, in our
We've
new
got
gym.
about 15 minutes worth of time that we could allocate.
We don't have long. And where do you do?
exercise.
Do you do this at home? Have you set this up at home?
I've got all the other equipment apart from the oxygen therapy, which I'm buying at the moment. But if you get it all at home, it's 20 minutes on the red light, which you can bring down to 10 depending on what you use, but it can be 10 to 20. PEMF is 12, and then the adaptive contrast is 15. So you can be done pretty quick in less than an hour.
And so what's the red light? The red light's for skin?
Yeah, I mean, I bought it for repairing cells, but it fucking changes your skin.
Yeah, well, your skin, you're glowing. I was thinking that this morning.
Yeah,
Wow.
after 4 weeks, I said, Rach, hey, are you noticing your skin's changing? Because we didn't obviously buy it for that reason. And she's like, yeah, it just makes it more supple and apparently it just boosts all your collagen.
Unreal. But not cheap. So for anyone at home, what's the recommended retail price of a red light machine?
It depends, right? I was going to buy the whole, the solarium machines, those
Yeah.
solarium machines.
Yeah.
They've
I used
got
to own one.
Did you?
Yeah, back in the day.
Did you?
I owned my own solarium.
That's a surprise. That doesn't surprise
As
me
you
at all.
do.
I was a bit of a tanorexic. I love being brown. And I used to go to this tanning place in Hobart when I was living in Hobart. I used to go and slap on the tan cream, which would sort of accelerate your tan. You accelerate, so you walk out like a lobster.
With a little
And so
glasses.
get in the stand-up solariums, and you'd hold the handles at the top, and sort of just get zapped, and walk out because you put this stuff on, which kind of brings, I think it's
Melanin?
it brings blood to the surface, and I walk out fully red, fully lobster, and man, I was brown as. In the depths of winter in Tasmania, I had a tan like I was on the beach in Bali.
Were you doing chins in the...
No, I used to go home and do chins. But then what I do, I was like, man, I'm spending money on, and it was a fair chunk of change to kind of get a pack of 10 solariums, solis, and so I was like, man, what if I bought one? I went online to research how much it would be to buy a solarium, and it was a lot cheap. I mean, I worked out how many I'd need to use before I kind of got my money back. And yeah, it was this thing. It was a half. The only problem was it took an hour instead of 10 minutes. It took an hour because it was weaker, and you did one half, and then you had to turn around and do the other half. And then I had some people who used to pay me a little bit
To
of
use it,
bit of
'cause
money,
they
so it's a
were
little bit of
illegal
a
at some point.
little bit
It
of an
was like a
entrepreneurial business as well.
Solarium black market.
And then
going
I
on.
took it to Sydney with me.
The
from
solarium.
Hobart.
No, you were keen.
I took it to Sydney because when I moved to Sydney out of Hobart, I was packing up this truck and I paid for this full truck space, and I just had heaps of space left in this truck. And they were like, do you have anything else you want to take up? So I was like, yeah, I actually do. So I took the solarium. My first when I first moved to Sydney, I was in Paddo at White City, and I was living in this gym. So I was living in the storeroom of the gym where we used to do yoga down at White City. In that same room that used to do yoga, I was in the storeroom. I used to live there for the first year I was in Sydney. So I was a storeroom living battler, earning like no dollars a week, but I was very tanned. And I looked good, and I had the solarium.
I didn't have much, but I had the solarium.
Yeah, and I still remember the day it broke apart. I was trying to move it to another house, and it came off the back of a truck, and it all just disintegrated. I was like, man, it's been a real journey. Like, we parted ways. We'd had shared a few good times and bad times together, and it was done. So, and from that point, I never, and it wasn't that long after I think that it was all outlawed. So, but yeah, don't solarium, kids. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it now. But anyway,
well, they've refurbished them into now red light.
Have they?
So they've gone from like giving you cancer to now improving your mitochondria, from what I hear. So those solariums now, you can buy them anywhere between like 25 to 50 grand. However, you can get the same benefit. I've got like a motorized stand with like a panel's like this wide, and I've got a massage table, and that costs me like 6 grand. And it's the same outcome, but I've got to flip. So I've got to go 10 minutes. In the solarium, you don't flip because it gets you both sides. So it's more efficient. But then I've realised I ran into a guy on Sunday who's a doctor in longevity, and he gave me a recommendation of this mat you can buy for like $1,500. You can actually take it around with you, like if you're going like travelling. And I'm going to put that on the massage table, lie on that on my back, and then get the front done, and then it's 10 minutes done. So that's
good.
6.
Efficient.
PEMF is like 12 grand. And then oxygen is about 12 grand as well.
And what's the net benefit? Is it living longer? Is it looking better? Is it feeling better? Is it sort of all the above?
All of the above. Like Dana White, look at him. He posted on his Instagram
recently.
60
now? Is he?
He was about to die. Like he was like in terrible health.
He went on. What was his diet? Carnivore. He did part of his routine, I think, or part of what he did was, I remember reading, was carnivore.
Okay, I've got no idea about the nutrition, but it's a big part, like what he did, nutrition.
Yeah.
But those 3 things is what is like the superhuman protocol, and he said it's changed his whole life.
Wow.
So that was good enough to just do it.
I love the circle that you run in. Like, I just ran into this guy on Sunday, this longevity doctor. Like, I don't know anyone else who's running into longevity doctors.
Yeah, the people you meet in the Byron Shire.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's working with like high-level executives. He was an anaesthetist. He lives in Byron, and he's like doing longevity for like top executives, like protocols like this as well, like just helping them get set up and get awareness around what to do.
Smart. Well, Benny, we could talk about longevity for a long time,
We should.
and we could maybe just deviate and just go down that rabbit hole now. But man, it's so good to have you on because you come with a lot of credentials in this space, which is sales and building a business. So, currently founder of one of Australia's largest online education providers, absolutely creaming it, but also previous to that, Australia's number one and largest buyers agency. You were founder of that and basically pioneered an industry.
Yeah.
And so you built a really large team. And both of those businesses, what they both have in common is they have both relied on really good marketing and also really, really good sales and selling. And so that's really what we're here. That's what we love to unpack here on the potty is to talk about the sales aspect of a business and how to sell better and build sales teams. So, man, I want to go back to building out Cohen Handler. Like we met. I remember we were. I'd always go to the cafe at Glider, and man, I'd always be annoyed because I'd have to wait for my coffee because all these suits were in the coffee shop, and there was you there just in the corner every morning, just eating your eggs on toast and with your lappy out.
Also in a suit.
Shaven head, P. Johnson tailored suit.
Did I have a shaved head back then?
Back in the day, you had a shaved head.
I used to go number one.
Yeah, number one. Fully shaven, P. Johnson tailored suit, perfectly fitted. And I honestly don't remember how we ended up, we got chatting, but it might have just been because we were always in there together. Oh, no, it was because we were in we were in the smart company. It was like...
Smart 30 under 30.
Smart 30 under 30. And I was like,
We both won a place.
yeah. So I was probably illegitimate. I was running a business that wasn't very that wasn't very smart. I was like, yeah, man, I've gotten number 20 on the Smart 30 under 30, and one ahead of Benny. Whereas you were actually running quite a significant business with your business partner. But anyway, that's how we got chatting.
Yeah.
I think I was like, that's the dude at the cafe. And so we chatted, and that would have been nearly a decade ago now.
Yeah.
So we're coming up to 2018. I reckon it was 9 years.
Yeah.
8 or 9 years ago. Probably 9. So we're in the cafe. You're running a business. There's just more and more suits that come into this cafe. It's growing like a weed. So talk us through, man. Like, there's a lot to learn from you and just how you built a sales team. You had 80 staff at one point in that business. What was the journey of building that? But you started the business. Let's go through then, building that sales team.
So I think in the cafe, just shifting gears back, I think you were there just fully jacked, looking great, like in your singlet.
We got one half of the story.
Yeah, like I'm like 25 kilos, you're like 80, 90, just ripped. So you're probably thinking like, what's this dude? And I'm like, I need to look like that. And so I think we just started talking business. I think we just
That's
like...
right, we did. We went for dinner. We had just had random like bro dates at Faget or...
Yeah.
What was the Italian? It's
Paradiso.
Fratelli Paradiso.
Yeah. So I think we were just enjoying the chats on business and catching up. But CH, like Cohen Handler, just started based on just a basic problem. Like when we were in the States, in California, we looked at the market there, like 89% of people use a buyer's agent. And then we looked at Australia and we're like, hey, there's a few people doing it here. Like no one knows about it. Like there's a few people who've got operational businesses, but like what's going on with all these buyers? Like, and I just thought it was a massive problem. I was just like, why do all these sellers have representation like real estate agents, but all these buyers like have zero represent? So I was just like, this is a big, big problem. And so I saw it as just a massive opportunity. So then we just like thought, okay, let's just start up. We didn't look at what the competition were doing. Like we didn't say like these guys are charging retainers, these guys charge. We didn't actually look at, like we did some research as to who was operational, but we just said, let's just do what we want to do. So we just like said, let's charge this. Let's charge retainers of $5,000 up front. Let's work on 2% of the purchase price because we were buying owner rocks at that stage. And we just validated the model really quickly. It was really hard. Like no one knew what a buyer's agent was. No one wanted to pay. But like we just got validation really quickly. So we just like signed the first client. His name was Curtis. I forget what it was, like 1.6%. It was like a $2 million or maybe a bit less.
Oh, you remember the first client? Remember his name? Yeah.
Yep.
Curtis,
yeah. And
where did you buy for Curtis?
It was for his son in Darling Point, 2-bed apartment.
Nice.
I think it was like 1.6 or something million.
2-bedroom apartment in Darling Point for 1.6. What are they worth now?
Oh, I don't know. I'd be guess. It could be worth like 3+.
Yeah.
Good buying. Well done, Penny.
Yeah. Good buying. But getting to your point though about sales. So I didn't come from a background in sales. So starting this business was really challenging for me in the sense of like, you got a prospect. Then when you get in front of the prospect, you got to like carry yourself in a meeting. So I was really bad at sales. I think naturally I had a talent for it, but I was very bad at it to begin with. And I realized really quickly like how important it was to like smash it and become the best at it. Because
what were you seeing? Like what was happening? Like obviously you came to that realization. Was it in your own meetings or was it when you started to scale a team and you found that you could sell, but then your team was struggling to sell? Was it a mixture?
It was definitely personal to begin with. So like lack of confidence, talk too much, didn't ask good questions, had no structure to a meeting. At the end of a lot of meetings, hey, I'll get back to you. Hey, I'll get back to you. They probably weren't even in indecision. They're probably just like, I'm not getting back to this dude. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm the one at night thinking...
You're just like, yes, that was a good meeting. Yeah. Well, put it in the pipeline.
Yeah, that's it. I thought
project the revenue for this month.
Yeah, like fake projected revenue. So I then realized how important it was to like dial in sales and like have structure, have a framework and start like working really hard at that skill because I realized that like if you can sell And like you said earlier, like, and you got good marketing and you got like a good service or product, which I believe we had a really good service, like you're unstoppable. Period.
Yeah. You're I think the biggest thing is having a good service and something good to sell first is the key. But if you've got that good service that can deliver results, gets great results, if you can package it up the right way, I mean, because often people have great service, but they don't package it up or they can't sell, and it really holds them back. So with the process you learnt, like you put that in place, like how did you go about sort of building your first process?
You mentioned something really interesting. I'm going to get to that. Is like what I saw when I sold Cohen Handler and I went online with BAI, I realized how many people had shit products that were then selling it well because they were really good at sales.
Yeah.
So I looked at that and I was like, wow, like that's poor customer. But then going back, I think there's a large amount of people, who have really good service and products, but zero understanding of sales, and it's why they flop.
Yeah.
And
or do average, like they plod along. I think a lot of them will, do reasonably well because they'll get a client or like somehow land a client and then they get referrals. But those people could be exponentially more successful if they just tweaked or learnt something about sales.
100%. Yeah. Like I
Doesn't take
agree.
much.
I agree with you. Like I reckon these people can like exponentially like change their business just by being better at sales. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
But sales process. So I was in real estate, obviously, like that was the sector. And I was never a real estate agent, but I was like, I don't want to sound like these people. Like, I don't want to like come to market with a sales formula process where I look like these people and sound like these people. Even though we were a buyer's agent, but I didn't want to like be in that boat. So the first step was like, I went and looked at different industries around how they sell. So I was looking primarily in technology. I was looking at B2B because I think it's a bit of a harder sales cycle. So I did research, looked at that, and then obviously got a trainer and then just started following a process. And so a framework to me was the most important thing. Like I didn't learn scripts for me. I learned a framework and then I blended my personality into that framework and just like relentlessly like analyzed myself within the framework. And that's how I got better.
Can we say the sales trainer's name?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I remember you got the sales trainer, and then I was building my business, and I had Rapid, and I was a bit stuck. I was a bit stuck on. At this point, I'd still, we had a lot of trainers and personal trainers, fitness trainers, and they had to sell in the gym, and so I was coaching them, but I was feeling like I was coaching them, but we weren't getting better. Like at the time, I was like, man, how do I sort of translate knowledge into results? And I was chatting to you, and you were saying you were getting some really good traction with a trainer that you had at the time, Phil, and so I inquired. I said, oh yeah, cool. Can you shoot me his details? I'd love to chat to this guy. And it was my first introduction to negative reverse selling. Oh my God. I got fully, so I remember being in the office in Sussex Street in Sydney. And so Phil Lee was this sales trainer. He's following a methodology, and he was a really good trainer. But part of that methodology was a thing called negative reverse selling, which it's about sort of pushing your prospect away, sort of almost saying that, hey, this is not for you. Or maybe, look, this is probably not going to be fit. And so you're sort of pushing them away, and you're not really sharing information. Sort of, they've got to opt in. And so I've got this guy, and I haven't been exposed to this style of selling at the time. So I've learnt the Jordan Belfort style of just like, let's go pitch. And so I'm in the office, and so we're having this consult. He came into the office, and we've had this consult. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is great. Like, how does it work? Like, I'm interested. I'm like super interested. And so. But I got negative. I later learnt it was the term. I got Phil lead. I got fully Phil lead, and so what was happening was we went through a process. He was asking me questions. I was giving him answers, but then I was getting to the point where I was like, man, I'm pretty interested. Like, I want to know some info. I want to know how it works.
Your
like,
personality
so
as well.
Are you going to come in and train my team, or how many days a week are you going to work together? How much is it? How much is it going to cost me? Like, I'm just needed to put in my budget. And he's like. I'm asking these questions, and he kept asking me questions from the questions that I was asking, and I'm like, so man, so how does it all work? Well, man, like, how would you want it to work? How would you want it to work? Well, I guess that's why I'm asking you, like, what's the process? Well, I'm not sure it's going to be a fit yet, Chris. Like, I need to sort of really find things out. Like, where do you see value? And I'm like, and we just went around this circle, and I'm like, and I was legitimate at the time. I was legitimately like interested. I'm like, what are the next steps? And I got fully negative reverse sell. But at the time, for me, it was actually a negative impression because I was like, dude, this guy's just relentless. Like, just give me the info. So
Did you sign up? You signed up?
I don't think I did. No, honestly, I don't even think he got. I really don't think I got the information at the time. I think it was more he came to triage me. Maybe felt like I wasn't committed enough.
I was going to say, I don't think it was reverse selling. Maybe he just didn't want to work with you.
No, maybe it was. Maybe I wasn't committed. I don't know. Who knows? But he didn't give the information, or maybe he did. I can't remember. But we didn't work together. But
I remember the phone call. I remember the phone call from you. Like, you were just like shocked, and you were so pissed off.
I was.
He's extreme though. Like,
he's extreme. Like
he very goes a bit hard.
Yeah, and it's. I think now having spent, that was probably, like, I'd say that was 8 years ago. That was a long time ago. Now having spent 8 years in the depths of learning the art of sales and just being really deep on this, I now know that it works, but it works when it's like carefully and you're tactful about it, and you got to have a lot of trust. And so where he was coming from was a place of not much rapport. He was very hard, like very kind of direct.
Yeah.
But it was super abrasive. And so when you're delivering that sort of stuff, it's really got to come covertly. But it does work. But I got full lead.
Yeah, I think brace is the right word. Like, you've got to, and I think you've got to like learn where you can like weave it in, because it builds serious trust.
Definitely.
That's what I liked about what you were saying, how you use a framework, but you blended your personality in there.
Yeah.
So I think obviously, you're very charismatic, and it would be such a shame if you were just adopting a script and doing word for word. It would not have had the same effect.
I just never learn off. I mean, scripts work. I mean, and they obviously work for like large companies, especially like Telstra and shit. Like, if you need to, like, you got to scale, like you got a huge team and you need to get them consistent. I think scripts can work as well. Like in real estate, they work really well. But I think that like people can't copy the personality, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're thinking of a script, you're not on personality. Yeah. You're on your sales trainer, or you're on someone else's dialogue. But ultimately, like what I kind of learned was, like, I think for me especially, like, if you've got strong confidence and you ooze authority, and you can take control of the meeting, and you can really demonstrate that you care a lot, and you can just build that trust, even not in the meeting, but way before the meeting, and you can like, I think you can really nail it a lot outside of all the other things. You know what I mean?
Well, you could be the same as, you have the same service, like you have competitors in the marketplace, you got the same delivery, the same, you solve the same problems, you probably do the same exact thing, and your results probably aren't much better. But the way you sell and the way you can build trust, and if you can have, like you say, the authority and confidence, the more trust you can build with a buyer, they're going to feel much more connected to you, and more likely to buy from you from that perspective. And then with you being a service provider as well, you're not just selling the thing, you're actually selling, but then you got to work with the client. You've got to deliver the service onwards. And so how you set up that relationship really all starts even before the sales call, but on the sales call right through. So if you don't have authority, I know in the buyer's agent world, if you don't have authority in the sales call, you're going to get sort of pushed around by the client during the delivery.
Yeah. And, talking about authority and confidence, I was out for dinner about a month ago in Sydney with a good friend with Rachel and myself, Adrian Oddie. He's like a top performing real estate agent at Brissett Whitney. And he just started, I forgot how it went, but he started role playing his presentation at dinner. And I was just listening to it, and like the confidence that he was like just oozing, like in the delivery, like you could just feel it, the authority, the posture, the questions that he was also you can tell he diagnosed, like he asked a lot of questions like doctor style. I was like sitting there, like if I'm a fucking vendor, like I would have signed.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's got a remarkably strong strike rate. And I think it just comes down to that, again, confidence, authority, trust. And I think they're just foundational pillars that I feel like you need to have to be a lead at this.
I've been thinking about this because we've built a sales training course, and it's I've been thinking about putting this into models, and I've got a theory on that being sold on who, not like what the problem is or the sort of solution or the product, but being sold on you as a salesperson. So the first person or the first sale that has to be made is they've got to be sold on you, and then they've got to allow you to lead the interaction. They've got to comply with your lead, and they've got to. There's three things. I think likability is really important. People have to really like you, because that you could be super you could have a lot of authority, but if you don't show that you care, if you don't really show that you understand them, they're not going to like you very much. Yep. So you're going to be the Phil Lee kind of thing. You're going to just be super abrasive. So I think likability is like he's a sharp trainer, and he knows his stuff. So but the time for me, and I was quite a direct person as well. So I just wanted to be straight up, like as well. I wanted directness.
It's a bit of a frame clash.
Big time. I had no idea I was in a frame clash at the time. I had no idea what the freaking frame was. I was just like, dude, give me the info. I was so confused. And I called you and I was like, bro, fuck. But so I think likability is really key. I think trustworthiness of research, but trust, what's the meaning of trust? Trust is about a measure of your intention. So, and I think your intentions on a sales call, if you're there to help versus there to close. So if you're there to actually help regardless of whether they buy or not, I think it's really important. But if they feel like you're there to close, regardless of whether the buying's the best thing, they get their guards up. And then last one, I think confidence, where confidence comes in, it's believability. I think the reason why confidence is important, I think, in an interaction, regardless of whether you're selling or not, is because they say, that if you lack confidence with your communication, people think subconsciously, not consciously, they think subconsciously that you're holding back information. You're not being truthful. So it's dishonesty. Yeah. So I think like trust, belief, confidence is the belief part.
A big part of sales, and it's so, I guess, heightened when you're sitting in someone's lounge room in real estate. I think that's why real estate's such a good place to start, is just making people feel safe. Like if you can make people feel safe, you see it so many times in real estate. Like a lot of agents will have better results. They've probably got a better process, but vendors will go with the person that they liked or felt safe with because, they have to work with them. It's just such a big part of what you do. Like if you can get that part right, then you can really fuck the rest of it up. But
you can get away with a lot more.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Like I think there's a few things to note. Getting back to the comment around Phil, right? You're a direct guy, and Phil didn't read that you were a direct guy. Yeah. So like, I think to master sales as well, like, you've both got different personalities. So if I was in a sales consultation with you, it'd be very different to you. Like just because I can feel that your personality is different. So I think Phil didn't realize you were direct, and he should have just given you what you needed to help you make that decision. And so he's just too on like robotic mode of a process. And that's why you got to be a bit malleable. But getting back to belief, like I agree with you. Like I think that like the best salespeople, they've got such extreme conviction. Like you can just feel it. Like their level of conviction around what they're providing or what the company or whatever they're selling is so deep. And like it's so deep that like you build just trust like that because of their belief. And we've had this conversation like with closers or sales. I'm like, you don't need to be any more technical. Like you can read 1,000 more books, you can listen to 1,000 more podcasts, but you've got to believe in the product more than the founder.
You can get better objection handling dialogue. You can tweak all that stuff. But if you don't believe that you can get results and like have that unshakable confidence,
it's so true. The unshakable confidence, and like you kind of want to like the temp check is you want to have more. If you're not the founder and you're selling, you want to have, I think, as much conviction as the founder around the product or service. And I think when you can like bring that into the sales situation, like you kill it. And I think as well, going back to something you said, I actually think what's so important to build the trust is like, let's say you got a sales process where there's an appointment setter, as an example. If that appointment setter fucks up to any degree and doesn't build trust, you're losing points already because that's the first point of conversation. I always like to say, like, you walk into a restaurant, the person who opens the door, if they're a dickhead to you, that's your first introduction to a restaurant. If the food is amazing, but the waiter or waitress is an asshole to you and the food's amazing, you're going to leave that restaurant and someone says, how is it? You're going to say the food was excellent, the service was shit.
Totally.
And so getting back to the sales process, like it all needs to line up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also,
I ran a training just before this, and we were chatting about whether someone comes onto the sales call, where are they in their buying temperature? You know, when you get them on a sales call, if they're at a 2 out of 10, it's very hard for one sales call to take someone from a 2 to a 10. There's a lot of heavy lifting for that sales process. For that, you've got to do a lot of selling and convincing, and prezos, and you've got to do a lot of work on the sales call to get someone from a 2 to a 10. So you don't really want someone who's a 2. And so a setting call, like appointment setters have such an important role. And I was always fascinated when building the sales team with BAI at the difference in conversion rates between sort of some setters and other setters, and just knowing and just seeing that there wasn't a coincidence, that some setters had a really high conversion rate and others didn't. Others were putting up maybe bigger numbers of sets on the board, appointments held, but not many people were closing. And so I was always fascinated with that. And I think it is about the nurture and having built that excellent trust, so that they're taking someone who might have been a 4 out of 10, getting them onto the sales call. Now they're a 7. And they're also not just the conversation, but they're doing other work around sending content, specific nurture to kind of get that person up a little bit more in their temperature.
I agree. And I think on top of that, getting back to your point you made earlier as well about just like adapting, from what I could understand, like to a personality to build that trust. I think, again, you need to, like if your setter's on the phone to someone and they're needy like you were with Phil, they want stuff, like they want price or they want, and then let's say you don't provide the price, or they want something that you typically wouldn't provide. It's not maybe in the archetype of what you do. Like, you need to provide it. Otherwise, they're going to have the shits with you. They're going to have a bad experience. They're not going to look forward to the next call. And like you said, they're going to be a 2 out of 10. Then the other sales rep has to like do the heavy lifting. But you've heard me talk about this. Like, I think the most under-recognized step in a sales process is before. So like the before, during, after. During is your sales meeting, whatever you call it. After is like if they're in indecision and you're following up if you haven't closed out the sale. I think the most under-recognized is before. And I think a lot of creativity needs to be put into before. Like not just like real estate agents might give like a pre-listing kit. People just do standard things. Yeah. They might send you an email with an agenda, or I don't know, or they might I think the people who can really think about nailing before, like to a degree where they're relentless and fanatical about thinking about before, where that trust is already built, they just want to meet you. They're like, hey, it's like a surgeon. Like you're going to use a good surgeon. You're like, hey, I'm going to use Charlie Teo. I just got to turn up and get an appointment with him, but I'm using him. You've made that decision. Like if you can build the sales process where they're like, hey, I'm using you. I just need to show up to the phone call to make sure you're not a bot, you're not a robot, you're a human, or whatever it is. If you can achieve that, you're set.
Oh, you're set. Yeah. We had Jack on last week, Jack Henderson, and we were chatting about this, and his journey in business is short, but he's noticed a significant improvement and just ease with his sales, with selling, as he's built his brand, as he started to put more into the marketplace, even with some of the challenges that came up, the TV sort of exposés, because he's built such a strong brand, such a strong personal brand, people tend to know him. They're showing up to sales calls. They've got a lot of belief already.
It's almost like they just want to show up to the sales call to meet this celebrity. You're almost a celebrity. Like for a lot of our clients. I mean, if you were jumping on sales calls, I think a lot of people at BAI would.
This is what we did as well. Like so,
good point.
When back in the day when BAI started, you're on calls, hustling. I was just rebuilding the life. I was doing some PT sessions on the gym floor, and I'm like, dude, get me on calls. Love to close, and I jumped on these calls. And I think this comes back as well with belief in the product, belief in whatever. Because I freaking sucked, man. Like initially, I was lucky we were mates, mate. Because I don't know if I would have lasted very long because we were burning leads like they were, burning through leads. But eventually, we worked it out. But I found in those early days of selling, that product. Didn't really know anything about property, had never purchased property, didn't know much about what you did other than you sort of, you love coffee at the coffee shop and, everyone looked good and they had good suits. So I didn't know what a BA did. And so I started selling it. Did okay, but definitely was burning a few. And it wasn't until I started to really understand and see the results. When I started to see the results that students were getting, my conviction in the results and the product really started to lift. And then that gave me a lot of authority on calls because I'm coming from a place where I've got something that you want and need. I know that when you buy this product, your life's going to improve as long as you commit. And, it's not that you need to prove yourself, I need to prove myself to you, but it's kind of like you need to prove yourself to me. When I had that frame, it gave me more confidence.
Yeah.
And then the homework thing, this is kind of leading to the homework because we never had any home. We never had we didn't have pre-call initially. So we had people going through a funnel and they were jumping on. And so we had a fair bit of heavy lifting to do, like in that 2018. I remember just jumping on calls and what is a buyer's agent? Okay, well, let me explain that. Well, who are you guys? Who have you worked with? Okay, let me explain that. I've got to go through a lot of steps to bring someone down that funnel. And I remember we built that homework page and we went from, because I used to have a business. I used to feel like I was someone. I felt like I was a big shot. And then I was on these sales calls with these guys who were like a Facebook lead and they would just treat me like I was an absolute piece of trash. Just like you're trying to sell them something. And so they didn't have much respect for me. They thought I was trying to sell them. And when we built a homework page that had a video and then you and me were in your living room and we built that video and you remember that whole spiel about he used to be a police officer, so if you don't sort of if you don't behave on the call, you might get arrested. And so we built the video, but once we had the video, people were getting on calls. They're like, "Oh, you're the guy in the video."
Yeah.
And it was just this complete change. They had some information about what a buyer's agent was. We sort of prepared them for all that. Dramatically shifted.
That's true.
Sales results.
Yeah, it supercharged the conversion. That was a really good initiative. I mean, that just change the results because you're right, like they got to see us. I think the Jack Henderson's an interesting point about his brand. He obviously didn't think about, I'm going to build a personal brand and then like, that's going to help me like sell better. Or it's not like, but he's put in so much effort to build it that it's naturally just done the heavy lifting before. And getting back to being creative, like I think people need to think, and like I think about this often as well, like how do you go really deep with it? It might be a 2-3 year plan. I don't know, it could be a year plan. Rather than just giving a brochure or doing or do whatever people do. Like I think like the companies or the people who nail that the best, like Jack as an example, who's worked hard at doing that, I think they win the best in terms of getting the best results.
Absolutely. Have you heard the stat? And again, it's like one of those they say things, but they say that it takes 7 hours of spending 7 hours with somebody to form a really strong relationship, and human brains can't tell the difference between like a video or audio and you actually being there, which is why podcasts are so effective because I shouldn't be saying this, so we're tricking you into thinking that you have a relationship with us.
We're building a virtual relationship with all the listeners. Yeah,
but if you listen to 7 hours of content from somebody, you actually feel like you've spent 7 hours with them and your brain can't tell any difference. So you start to feel like you have a relationship with them. And I think that's why personal brand is so powerful because people feel like they know you. They feel like you're a part of their world when you may have never met.
I agree with that. I think that's a good point.
So real estate, building a really big team, like massive team, 80 staff in Australia's largest buyers agency to moving to the remote online space, building a large sales team. Like what, in your perspective, from what you've seen over the years, we've worked together for a long period of that. Just interested to know, like, what have been your kind of key lessons or key shifts in your thinking around building sales teams and selling well. Well. I think Outbound said it. I think Outbound and having like really sharpening Outbound is something that we've worked on a lot. That's one for me. But
I think real estate naturally, like, and you'd probably know this as well. I mean, you obviously know this now. It's like, it's you eat what you kill. So you're an outbound savage. Yeah. Like you have to be an outbound savage. Like the company doesn't go, hey, here you go, and just
These are these
fill up your
leads.
pipeline. You wake up and you've got your diary full of like vendors you're meeting, and you just, so real estate I think is a really good testing ground to understand, I think, a lot of what selling is about, which is like going to find your prospect and building that whole journey. So I was trained like that. So like I didn't know any different. I was like, hey, you got to find your own prospects. And then I learn as well, because I think this happened naturally for me, is because no one knew what a buyer's agent was when I started. Like people thought I was an art dealer. And I actually had short, I had short hair.
Look like one here.
I used to look a lot more respectable, and I didn't look like an art dealer. But people thought when I said buyer's agent, like, oh, you buy and sell art. So I was up against a sales cycle which was very long, because they didn't know what a buyer's agent was. They didn't want to pay me $5,000 up front. They didn't want to pay me 2%. So naturally the process got drawn out a long time for them to want to use this. So I then got accustomed to like pipeline management, like staying on the prospect, like nurturing them, like, hey, you might like this. And so I naturally had to go down that route. So I think like I was able to like bring some foundational like thinking principles like into what I need to do next, right? In terms of like what works. But I think in real estate, it comes down to, I see some of these top performing agents like in this sector, is it just comes down to like discipline and diligence with doing the boring old shit every day. Like there's nothing special about some of these really high performers like that I see as outstanding, where I'm like, oh my God, like this person is incredibly talented, or like their dialogue is like, I don't really see that. I'm just like, they just do a lot of the shit that people don't want to do. Like that,
And they do it consistently.
They do it every single day.
Because you're friends with some of the top agents in the country, and they technically are some of the top salespeople.
Yes.
In the country, in terms of their revenue, their commission, and I know you've got some good insights. You've interviewed a lot of the top guys in Sydney who are probably the top performers in the country, and I'm sure you've like pulled some principles out from what they, how they go about their sales process.
Well, so interesting talking about that is like, you look at sales reps now across all industries, right? You got to think, well, what are they doing to sharpen their sword every day? Like, let's say you're a top performing closer, for example. The question is like, you've got your day structured out as an example. Let's say you've got 5 sales calls. Where's your time reviewing your presentation? Because when I interviewed Alexander Phillips, the #1 real estate agent in Australia, I think he does over 15 million a year. I asked him the question, hey, do you go, because he's so busy, he works 7 days, right? And I said, hey, did you review your presentation weekly? He said, no, every day. And so
how does it, I'm so curious, how does a listing presentation, how does it go? Like what's the sort of, what is the key parts of a listing presentation?
They do them in all, like Adrian, the example I gave you, Adrian Oddie, he's a bit unconventional from what I'm just guessing here, but he's a bit unconventional. He asks a lot of questions, which is what I like. And I'm sure he asks a lot of questions, and he carries it in a I'd say in quite a unique way. They're not long. I think his are around maybe 30 to 40 minutes. A lot of them are very structured though. They all follow a formula, which is why I think it's good if you can stand out in that field. But they're selling very high ticket as well. Like some of these commissions, the biggest commission I think we did at CH was about 560,000 for a transaction.
That's mind blowing.
So like they're ultra like high ticket. So I don't know. I think that getting back to some of these agents, right? I don't know. Like I feel like when I kind of, because I like to analyze like how they show up, and I look at them online, and obviously I don't sit in their listing presentations, so it's hard for me to get a proper gauge. But I just think going back again, like what some of the stuff you said, which is like belief, which is confidence. They've got a strong process, like a very strong end-to-end process. I just think they carry basic fundamentals that I don't think a lot of people can do. Like, I know it sounds really basic, but a lot of people can't do the boring old stuff consistently.
It's uncomfortable as well. Like having worked in real estate, I think you've got to be able to sit because you're sitting in someone's lounge room. Like, it's a very unique situation. You don't often go and sit with a prospect in their home.
Yeah.
It's like their domain. They're interviewing you, and it can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And the beauty comes in like sitting in some of the really uncomfortable parts, because a listing presentation is a little bit like a sales call, but it's kind of like, it can be almost like a little bit theatrical, because you know what's coming. Like, you know, you've done it hundreds of times. You know the objections. You know they're going to say they've spoken to another agent. They can do it for a less fee. So you almost get to a point where you're like waiting for the moment where you pause. And everyone sits in silence. And everyone's really uncomfortable except you, because you know this. You've practiced it a million times. So I think it's just, yeah, it's like, as you say, the boring stuff. But some of that boring stuff is just practicing sitting in silence. Like, some of the training we used to do was literally, I said to Chris the other day, we used to play this game where you would just have to ask a question with your teammate until one of you answered it with a statement, and then that person loses. So, and the other game we used to play is like, you just sit in silence. And whoever broke the silence lost, because you need to be able to sit in those really uncomfortable moments to be able to win the business.
Which is hard.
And it displays authority, it displays confidence. You know, filling space with words can be seen as a sign of low confidence or weakness, especially in that situation.
One of the things I noticed, right? So I didn't come from. I wasn't a selling agent, so I don't have access to a lot of this probably stuff you've learned. But one of the things that I learned was when I was if I want to sell, if I'm thinking of selling my home today, like, I know I'm selling, like I know I'm thinking of selling, and then I know I have to get a real estate agent. It's part of the process. Like, that's what I do in Australia. You get a real estate agent, right? But what I learned was not everyone uses a buyer's agent. They say there's around 3 to 5% of people in Australia that use a buyer's agent.
Crazy.
It's really small. So when I started out, what I realized, which was when I started to change the game with my sales process, was I helped the prospect understand they've got a problem, which they didn't think they had. So a lot of the times these people don't think they've got problems. And so I think when I realized when I started to improve my skill set was the moment I started to bring awareness to them that, like, hey, looking for 6 months, like, is not normal. Like, that's a problem. Like, and then helping them understand that maybe you haven't bought a property before, so that could be a problem. Or maybe the last time you negotiated on a property was like 3 years ago, that could be a problem. So that was like a pivotal, like, turning point around getting the team at Cohen Handler to dial things in, was getting people like to start utilizing these types of techniques and, you know, questioning and frameworks, because majority of these people did not think they had I'm talking like 98% or 99% thought they had no problem at all. Now it's changing slightly. Like, at least their prospects are coming in going, I want to use a buyer's agent, but not the majority aren't. That's why the majority don't use a buyer's agent. So I do think, you know, you've got to get a bit creative around how you dial in the presentation.
Yeah.
No, I think what's helpful for a salesperson, any salesperson, is to unpack what are the answers you're actually looking for when you're asked the questions. Because we all, you know, like you say, people have scripts, they've got frameworks of questions they need to ask. But if you actually put your mind in the buyer and unpack what are the answers to the questions that I'm looking for that really will highlight like a need, like you say, or highlight the problem. Hey, I do have a big problem. So, for example, if you're selling buyer's agent services, what are the things that hold people back from buying? And then what's the consequences of that as well? Like, and extrapolate the consequences. If you're selling some other sort of marketing services, like what are the things that hold people back from generating leads or having consistent sales? And then what are the consequences of that? And then what's going to happen if they don't get a solution? So if you can really, and that's what you did as well, because you were pretty masterful at diagnosing some challenges and saying, hey, this is not a Gray's knee. This is actually a bullet wound. You know, the lack of time that you've got, you're only spending 6 hours a week on your property search. You're up against buyers who are in the market for
That's right.
a full week, full-time job. Like, how do you think you're going to stack up against those buyers in a competitive bracket?
Which comes down to curiosity. I think the most curious salespeople win. So I used to have people that came to me all the time saying, I want off markets. And I probably went through maybe over a year just hearing it and not getting curious enough around the question. Like, why are these people coming to me and saying they want, like, why? Like, and so I didn't actually think of it. But then I broke it down. It's like, why are they asking me this? And the reason I unpacked, because the market was quite strong at the time, was they couldn't buy what's on the market. So they thought our value was delivering off the market, but our value was actually solving their problem to buy on the market. So we reframed it and said, hey, like, that's not your, like, we can get you off market, it's easy. And they're probably not going to work for you anyway because they're typically overpriced, blah, blah, blah. But your biggest problem right now is to call them out. It's like, you can't buy what's on the market. That's why you're here. Like, that's your problem. And I can solve that for you.
It's a much easier fix.
Yeah.
And then when you can educate someone on the problem they didn't know they had, that's where you like stand above,
Yeah.
and that's how you differentiate against all the other the competition. If they've gone and spoken to other buyers agents or other your competitors, if they have just given them a lunch list of what they do, as opposed to like educating them, hey, that's not the problem. Here's what you're facing. Much more powerful.
I think so. And I think also just being honest with the prospect as well, like around, like if they say something to you, for example, like that they might have heard from other buyers, like as an example, like let's just say like with whatever industry you're in, they've talked to your competition and the competition are, for example, telling them the same narrative about something, which you don't agree with, which you could jump on that bandwagon and agree with it. And you say, hey, like, no, like and you give a different perspective on it. And it's just different and it's honest and it's authentic. I think that's how you win also those trust points, because I don't think many people are always showing up with that level of authenticity on a call and calling things out a bit as well. So I don't know. I think that's helpful.
So it's it seems a bit salesy if you're just agreeing with everything the prospect says.
Yeah.
You're not sort of coming across as like a consultant. You're one of the most, I have to say, you're one of the most relentless salespeople I've ever known.
I like that. I'll take
You
that.
are, mate. You are.
Wow.
And I learn a lot from just working with you, because when we worked together in the early days of BAI, there was you and me. We were on the phone. If someone wasn't getting back to us, we were using Pemmer's. We were using Pemmer's phone. Someone was ghosting us. We were going to pick up the coffee shop, the barista's phone, mate. I need to call someone on a different number, like
Literally.
And but mate, you've obviously changed a lot of lives because of that. There's a lot of people who you know wouldn't have signed up if we hadn't have been a bit more kind of insistent and maybe just persistent, and now they're in a life-changing position. What do you think? What do you think a lot of people in this high-ticket industry? What do you think they're doing wrong? And what do you think what would you advise people to focus on? Things that you've learned in real estate, things that you brought into high ticket. Now you're in this space of high ticket. What have you observed about the differences?
Okay. I mean, you'd probably know what I'm about to comment on better than I would, but I would assume that people jump on the wrong offers. They don't like religiously look at the founder, learn about the founder, like study the founder, study their offering, go through the funnel, and just like get completely unequivocally sold on what they're going to potentially sell. So I think that could be a potential problem. Yeah. I'm just assuming, just based on people we've had come into. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people don't realise coming into this space that the businesses you're going into are so closely aligned with the founder. Like a lot of the time you go and start in a business, and a lot of people we work with come from maybe like corporate sales backgrounds, or they've done other things where the founder's values and energy gets a little bit diluted because they're a little bit removed, whereas this online space is often really closely connected to a personal brand and it's very strong. Like the sentiment is very strong in the business, and so I think it's very easy to get onto an offer because it seems like a good thing. We talk about it with our guys in launch. Like there's two parts to picking where you're going to work. One of them is, you know, is the actual role going to serve you? But then like how closely aligned are you with the values? So I 100% agree that can just derail a salesperson.
I think so. The reason I bring it up is because when people join BAI, like we had a sales rep join recently, young guy. Like I'm on the phone call. He's like, "Oh my God, like you're reaching out to me," and I said, "Man, I'll fucking talk sales with you any day, like Sunday. Call me like whenever you want." Like, and I feel like he hasn't researched me as a founder to realize like it's not work. Like I'll talk about it whenever you want. We'll talk as much as like obviously in reason, but like because he hasn't learned about me. So I think that's a bit of a problem. Like they don't learn about the leadership of the founder, of the person who's bringing the vision to life. So that's something I think that could be interesting to look at.
That's a big one.
I think definitely like nurturing prospects. I think in high tickets a bit. I think it can be done a lot better. I think, for example, like if you're at a closer level, you're in calls like all day. Typically, like your diary's stacked. You're trying to manage your energy, which is tough. But I think there's so much like focus on automation. There's like an email sequence going. There's a text sequence going. There's something going. But I've always been in the mentality like that is just cream on the ice cream. Like if it works, beautiful. Like if it works. But the manual level of like prospecting that you've got to do to manual nurture that you've got to do to keep prospecting, I think I don't think transferred over to the high ticket. I just think they think that my diary's full. If they don't close one call, goodbye. But like, I won't close on a one call. Like I'm a prospect that won't. I had something that I joined recently. Like the salesperson was very good. He didn't try and close me, but I won't close. But if the person is bringing his commission breath or her into the phone call on the one call to close me, fuck off. Like you've lost me now. Yeah. And so I think as well, there's like an urgency to like not go through a process based on what the prospect wants. It's what the closer wants. I think that is something that I've
That's
observed.
a big one, yeah.
Is that a big one?
I think it's a big one in this space. Like when we, because I had no idea what high ticket was until we started building that BAI and the sales team and just the process there. Like I'd always sold in person. I'd always sold sort of in in a gym, and then learning about this space. In the early days back in 2018, there was a lot of things happening in the States, and so you listen to things, listen to potties, or listen to do different courses, and there was a real sense it was closer is inbound. Gets calendar appointments put in their calendar, and it's if they're not buying, you've got to go harder with objection handling. You've got to find a way to get them on the call, and then if they're not going to buy, then you've got to really question their mindset, question their thinking, and it was a really aggressive way of selling and closing, and obviously it can work. I think to someone who maybe has low confidence, but if it's you're dealing with someone like yourself, like a sophisticated buyer, it doesn't work. But I also think there's a buy or die mentality, and I think the pipeline management, the strategic approach to pipeline management, pre-call and after call, is something that real estate agents have had to do, because if you don't, you sort of don't get paid. But in high ticket, you're you wake up every morning, you've got it's this thing where you're getting leads inbound. Mm-hmm. But I think potentially because of that, there's not as high emphasis on each lead has cost the company X amount of dollars, each call's on the calendar cost the company X amount of dollars, because it feels like it's just going to keep rolling.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, something I've observed that I spoke to you maybe a year ago about was, like in real estate, like buyer's agent or selling agent, like you can earn over $1 million, you can earn over 5 as an agent, you can earn over 10. And so with high ticket, I was like getting back to this mentality. This is what I thought. It's just my perspective. Because if I was a high ticket person, like let's say I didn't do what I did now, and I knew what I knew, and I was like, had to do high ticket, I'd be like, I'm not earning 40 grand a month. That's what let's say 50 grand's the high. Like let's say that's a really good amount as an example, right? I don't want to earn that. I want more than that. So if you can only fill up my diary, that's your problem. I'm earning more than that. And so I would be like, how do I build a team around me where we're going to go outbound? I'm going to build my own outbound team, and I'm going to have maybe 2 closers within my unit that they're going to be trained by me as well, by the company, but by me. They're going to be my unit because we're going to outbound, and we're going to fill up their diary with outbound until you guys believe that they're good enough. Then you can fill their diary with inbound, and I'll keep replicating that until I can get to my goal. Let's say it's 300 a month or whatever it is. And that's kind of how I would go about it.
The EBU.
That's
We've spoken about this a lot. It's so bizarre to me. Even I don't know many closers. I think Adrian maybe had a VA for a while there, but a lot of them don't even hire their own admin support.
It's going back to the biggest mistake that I think they make as a closer, in my opinion on the industry, is I turn up to work and my diary's full. That's your fucking problem. That's actually your problem.
That's a big problem.
That's your problem. Like that is the fundamental problem.
It's what everyone wants,
of high
but it's actually
ticket.
a problem.
It's the fundamental problem of high ticket, and people don't see it because they think, for example, if the top,
You think it makes them soft? It creates.
I think it creates complacency.
Yeah.
I think it makes them brain dead, and I think it strips away their ability to earn more money when they think they're killing it.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Yeah. It's a
And-
really fixed mindset. It's just like, well, okay, I'm the top closer. I'm earning 50K a year. A year. Shit, hopefully not.
I mean, some offers maybe.
Yeah,
That's the limit. I'm at the top. I've reached the top.
I think so. Like, I don't listen. I think the top ones who are making that, like they're fabulous. They're great. I'm not saying they're
Yeah,
not
and
good.
some people want to.
It's more I'm saying that, like, change your thinking. Like, look at other industries. People like real estate agents, buyers agents. Like at my company, the average commission was nearly 50 grand. And so, think about like that. You can earn more, and if you're going to rely on a company, if you're going to be interdependent on a company to fill your diary, it's your biggest problem. Sorry.
Hot
Don't
take.
hate me.
I know they're going to
Mic
hate me. I know I'm going to get hated, but I think the industry needs to evolve. That's where it needs to go.
Agreed. I really agree. I think if salespeople have more ownership over their results and think bigger, and we thought about this because we were looking at doing it. It was a very busy time. I think we had a baby. There was a few things going on, so we didn't progress with the EBU stuff. But there was a kind of a model for it.
yeah, we were
There was a
talking
model
about it,
for
weren't
it
we?
with. Oh no, Benny as well.
Yeah, I was talking about
Benny's
it with you
idea.
about Ben.
There was a model for it, which we had a husband-wife team on our team, and we had a closer who was closing business, and his wife was in the CRM just filling his calendar, and so they worked as a little team, and they worked and earned a really bloody good income for a family, and she was behind the scenes, just like filling his diary, doing all the follow up, pipeline management, all the little things. So there's a real model for it.
I think you guys can pioneer it. I think we came up with the acronym at the time, which was SBU, Strategic Business Unit. And that's a great example that Chris was sharing because we were watching it, but I was also watching it with my own lens, going like, there's this person behind the scenes. She's going outbound like a savage. She's dramatically changing their numbers. Imagine you had 3 of her and 2 more closers in that team, in that SBU. I think that's the next stage. Like, I think that you guys can like pioneer that shit and change the mentality of a closer. Like, I would not want to turn up with my diary full for my company. Like, I don't know why they want that. Like,
it's a more of an employee mentality. So you've got a business owner versus employee. So I have spoken about the importance of treating your sales gig like it's a bit like you're running a business. Same as a setter as well. Like even if you're an appointment setter on a 60K base and you've got, you get commissions, but if you think about your role as a business, your business, you're delivering a service to the company and you want to deliver the best service. And then what decisions would you make as a business owner? Would you hire a staff member? Would you outsource some stuff so that you can focus on higher revenue producing roles? Like, this closer was able just to be on calls, and then all of the back end stuff was being completed by the wife, and that just allowed them to both kind of work on the highest productive activities.
I agree. The reason I'm bringing it up though is because they're contractors. They've got a business.
They do have a business.
So if you've got a business, like, why don't you want to earn more revenue? You're not an employee. So like they're not treating it like business. They're treating themselves like an employee. So they should just become an employee. Like, you know what I mean? Like just become an employee and get treated like an employee and do that. But they don't do that. They're contractors. So I think it needs to change. And I'm looking forward to like seeing someone like you guys drive that change because I just think that's the next level of where it just has to go. I mean, so I'll be stoked to see it implemented because I think that's what they should be doing.
I think there's a really I'm going to note this down as something we're going to work on, the SBU.
I think we've flagged it for Elevate
Yeah,
Vision.
yeah. How to
part of the,
take your sort of 50K a month and turn it into a
As part of the program.
100.
I'll hold you accountable.
200.
Thank you, Ben.
Every 2 days I'll check in with you.
It'll be good excuse to catch up, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we finish up, you're a founder of a really successful high ticket company in Australia. There's a lot of people, a lot of guys that listen to this podcast who are either in a role in high ticket sales or they're looking to transition into high ticket sales. So what, I guess as a founder, like what do you see? What advice do you have, do's and don'ts for people who are looking to get into this space and work for someone like yourself?
Do the work on yourself. It's very straightforward. The more introspective, the more you learn about yourself, the more confident you get about who you are, the more authentic you are with yourself, the better you're going to show up, the better you're going to sell, the better you're going to dominate. It's very straightforward. And I think it's hard to go introspective and do the work on yourself and go through the layers of, like, could be childhood trauma. I don't know what it is. Like, it could be anything. But as soon as you go back and start working through and become the most authentic version of yourself, then you're ready to dominate. That's my recommendation.
It's pretty powerful.
Very
It's working on the roots to the fruits of confidence, certainty, authority. All of that, I think, comes from having done that deep work. Well, Benny, mate, it's been a real journey, eh?
Pleasure.
Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
And great to see you guys crushing it. Can't wait to see you. I mean, you guys are already dominating, but I'm going on a tangent here.
Go
Yeah,
for it.
keep
Go for
going,
it.
man.
We're supposed
There's
to,
no rules.
we're supposed to close out.
There's no rules in this podcast,
Okay,
man.
we're supposed to close. I'm like,
Yeah.
we got to get no. But I think that there's really, I mean, I think there's very poor recruitment done in Australia for the high ticket space. I think it's kind of like service in Australia. Like, you know, you go to Hong Kong and you see what service is like there versus Australia. You realise that Australia's got such shit service. There's really bad, I think, recruitment. So I think you guys are going to completely change the game there. So I think it's very exciting. I think you as a sales trainer, your passion for sales, like you care a lot about sales. I think you've been through a journey where you've run your own businesses, you've had issues with your businesses, which I think's a gift in itself. Like you've been torn down to the bottom. So I think you've been through a large amount of different cycles. So I think there's so much wisdom in that. I think for anyone who's looking to kind of, you know, be working with you and inspired by you. So I think that collectively the two of you are a fucking lethal combination. I mean that. I think you guys are doing something really powerful, and I'm just excited to see it like evolve and come to life. So, congrats.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Mate, it's been the foundation of this knowledge has come off the back of our work together with BAI and even before that, just with the just the friendship and business. So it's been a journey, man, and great to see your success, and excited to keep working together as we grow and evolve.
Love it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.